Good things come to those who wait. And Capella by Brookfield Residential is what you've been waiting for. This new urban project in the University District features 1- and 2-bedroom condos with a parkade starting from the upper 200s, and 2- and 3-bedroom estate single-level residences with private garages starting in the upper 600s. With a variety of floor plans, fitness studio, and central courtyard, you can have it all. Register today to be the first to own in this one-of-a-kind development. Visit CapellaLiving.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Smith. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration. I'm glad to be here. It's Monday night, September 17th, 2018, and I hope you're having a good night so far. Anybody who's tuning in, I have the chat room open if anybody wants to sit in there. And we're looking at the topic of, really it's a topic of grief, and this is sort of the last section of it from Havoka.org, so that's what we'll be looking at tonight. This is just sort of a reflection show for me, sort of see where I'm at in my healing journey. Hopefully it's helpful for other people. You know, it's I used to do them in the morning, but I find my morning's a little bit too rushed these days to be able to do it in the morning, so I figured I could make my shows at night for sure. And so I'm glad to be here. And so if you're listening and you're a survivor of abuse, you want to make sure that you're safe enough to be listening to something like this. You want to make sure that you're in a safe enough place that you're not going to be triggered and then, have a horrible night and, possibly hurt yourself or somebody else, and you don't want to do that. So if you are a survivor of abuse and you're not sure if you're strong enough to really be listening to something like this, then you need to get that information first. So you could just turn the show off and it would not be hurting my feelings at all. You can get safety first information out there on lots of different websites, but one for sure is the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and More Center program. They have safety first. They have a Survivor to Thriver workbook, which I've been through the whole thing, looked at it several times, actually working through it right now. And again, and they have a safety first chapter that's really worth taking a look at. And there's a lot of different adult survivor websites out there that have that information, so make sure you get it. Keep yourself safe. If you're anybody else and you're listening, you have to listen at your own discretion. I'm talking about abuse and specifically focusing on child abuse, which is horrific. It's a very uncomfortable topic for most people. It's uncomfortable to talk about, first of all. It's just uncomfortable to have to deal with, that's for sure. I'm surviving, all types of child abuse, all types of forms of child abuse, and it's horrific, this stuff, what it's done to me and how it's affected my life, and that's why I'm doing this show. So I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to work through this stuff. So, if you're just listening and you're not sure if this sort of thing might bother you, you have to turn the show off if you're not sure, because you want to make the right decision for yourself. Ultimately, it's up to you. And so I always say that on all my shows, because you never know who's going to be listening for the first time, sort of thing. And so, if you're a minor and you're being abused, you get help. I'm serious. You call like 500 people. You tell everybody you can possibly think of to tell, including the police, and file a report and get it done properly. Protect yourself. Do not allow yourself to be abused. It's absolutely horrific what people do. I know I was there It's absolutely horrific. So we'll get into this. So we're looking at HAVOCA. This is HAVOCA, HAVOCA, Information for Survivors. And it's Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse, HAVOCA. They have a Information for Survivors tab, and underneath of that you can scroll down. So if you just go to havoca.org, you can check their information out there for survivors, and then it has all of this information underneath that tab, so you can scroll through and check it out. There's all kinds of good stuff there. We've looked at most of it, and I just found it very helpful. And for me, some of it was pretty brief, and didn't quite go into things as much as I'd like. Wish they would have on particular topics, but that's okay. It's still a great resource. It's a great website. And I'm the Alberta Ambassador for NAASCA, NAASCA, the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, NAASCA.org. Go to that website. Check it out. There's all kinds of great resources. There's help there. There's information for people that want to know more, about child abuse prevention. There's information there for survivors. It's really just it's a public access website for people to get information, and there's lots and lots of info on there. So be sure and check it out. It's run by volunteers, and it's a great not-for-profit, and I hope you'll go check it out. And so we'll get into this here tonight. This is really the last section of this grief section, which was really hard to deal with. I'm working through grief right now. My husband just passed away 6 weeks ago, and it's been horrific, dealing with that on top of dealing with what I'm dealing with because he passed away, and he was so sick for so long. But because he's passed away now and he's not with me, he was my support buddy. He's my support system. Obviously, he's my husband. I'm triggered like all over the place because I'm grieving his loss. So, of course, I'm in pain and misery and sadness and despair. And because he's gone, I'm happy he's not suffering anymore. He was really sick. And so I'm happy he's not suffering anymore, but I'm sad for the loss of our relationship, our friendship, that day-to-day love and care that I receive from him as he's gone. And he's the only person in my life, really, that was willing to spend 23 years with me and love me and care for me, knowing my past and knowing what I've been through, and trying to be a support system, even though he couldn't understand what it was to be abused because he wasn't abused as a child. He knew what pain. He knows what pain is, and he was very caring, very loving, very supportive of my journey, my healing journey. And so I'm grieving him, and as well as then now I'm being triggered, and all of this stuff is coming back up. So it's absolutely horrific. So I'm having to deal with a lot of different things and remember that I got to separate the pain, because that pain is not the same. It's not, the pain of losing him is not the same as my past pain from being abused. So I'm trying to sort of keep it separate and learn how to cope and deal with this loss of my husband. So it's definitely a difficult time for me. So this grief section is it's been hard to look at it. I had taken like so many months off, 7 months or something, a long time, because his health was going downhill, and I really wanted to spend the time with him. So, and we knew that, we were pretty sure that this was kind of going to be it, because his body just couldn't do it anymore. And so, now we're finishing this up, and it's very difficult. We're looking at the last section, acceptance, forgiveness, and like the first stage is they list here 5 stages of grief. First is normal functioning. This is if a person's just functioning normal, everything's going good, stable, steady. Then all of a sudden, something happens to cause this grief. Maybe it's any kind of loss that's tragic, right? Any kind of loss. It could be a loss of a person in our life. It could be a loss of a job, loss of health. I mean, we're talking just anything could be a situation for grief, right? There's shock and denial, I guess, at first, avoidance, confusion, fear, numbness, blame. Then there comes anger. That's the second stage. Frustration, anxiety, irritation, embarrassment, shame. We already looked at that. That was a long time ago. Depression and detachment, overwhelmed, blahs, lack of energy, helplessness. And then the fourth step, dialogue and bargaining, reaching out to others, desire to tell one's story, struggle to find meaning for what has happened. And then there's acceptance, exploring options in a new plan in place, right? So this last section is called acceptance, forgiveness, and I like some of this that they have to say here. I did go through and briefly look at it. It's not very long. I'll just read from it. It's right from their page at havoca.org. And it says the final stage of grief is the acceptance phase, closely linked to forgiveness. Forgiveness of the abuser and or the family members, care workers who failed to protect you. So this is what this is all about. This stage occurs after the victim has been through all of the other phases and has learned about themselves in more detail. They know how to trust. They know how to believe their own feelings. They can start to work on the more positive aspects of their lives. It says generally the victim stops blaming themselves for the abuse. They stop seeing themselves as worthless, vulnerable, and helpless. They will start to respect themselves and start to show affection. The bottom line is that the abuse will become a scar and not an open wound. So they said here, some people have a problem with forgiveness because they see it as acceptance, that the abusive behavior was acceptable or it didn't really hurt them. Abuse is always wrong and always hurtful. Forgiveness does not mean you condone the abuser's actions. Forgiveness allows the hurt to be in the past and doesn't allow it into the future. So they go on to talk about that a little bit. This is kind of a serious issue, forgiveness. People who have survivors of abuse of any kind, whether it's domestic violence or child abuse, whatnot. I mean, I've heard, from different survivors, many different sides of this whole forgiveness thing. I have my own feelings on it too. Obviously, anybody who's looking in on this stuff would have their own set of feelings towards it, right? And I mean, I see some stuff. I've seen things out there where people are, survivors are so far along in their journey, they're just like, I've learned to forgive. It set me free, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, well, that's good for you, because I mean, I've forgiven, and that's not where I'm at. But the issue is everybody's in a different place. We're all different, different sections of our walk. I mean, nobody's going to be in the same exact place as somebody else at any given time. Will I ever get to that stage? I seriously don't know, because I'm not sure if I have that ability to be able to do that, to let that go. You know what I mean? To me, it's a real dishonor to what I survived and what I had to go through, to just put it all behind me, and just walk on and pretend it never happened, really. Basically, that's what a person would have to do, because you'd never want to bring it up again, because if you did, you'd have to go through all this whole rigmarole of describing it and understanding it again. To me, it's kind of like, no, this is what happened. This is who I am. This is the aftermath of the abuse. I'm 52 years old now. I seriously don't think I'm going to change all that much in the near future. I'm kind of hit my older adult years and made it through, periods of time where I never thought I was going to be able to. I was never going to live this long, according to myself years ago. And I'm still here. And I'm like, well, I have come a long, long way as far as learning how to cope and learning how to deal with things. I still have difficulties, but I think most people do. Certain situations come up. Some things are very hard to get through, and some things are hard to deal with. That's all there is to it. So, but I'm making progress, and I think that I can recognize the progress. But as far as forgiveness goes, that's an individual's choice, and they even go on to talk about that later, which we'll look at that. But I just wanted to stop here and sort of just camp on this for a minute, because so many times I see certain posts out there where some people will say that they would never forgive, and then some people will say that they have forgiven the abusers or abuser or whoever it was. And for me, I've done the forgiveness work because, for me, I'm a Christian. So in the Bible, I'm very much a Christian and into the Word. And so I'm like, wow, I have to forgive. I want to be forgiven, so I need to forgive. But I can't forgive the actions that were done. I can't forgive what that person did to me. I can forgive my mother. I knew what she was going through. My mother was abused as a child. Not only that, she was married to my dad. Bad idea. The man was highly abusive to her, treated her absolutely horrific. And, he was a church-going man, thought he was just such a pious Christian. The whole world thought he was just such a great man. And then he'd come home and abuse her and the kids, and, including me. And so, and outside it just looked like, oh, he's just this nice guy, funny, tells jokes, Christian, And we all knew exactly what he was like, living in that home. It drove two of my brothers to kill themselves later in life. I'm not surprised that they killed themselves at all. My dad was suicidal. He was always trying to kill himself. The church didn't know that. All of his church buddies, they had no idea that he was suicidal. My mother was always talking about suicide. Absolutely horrific. They set this mess up for us, and expected that what we're going to thrive in this? It's like, yeah, right. Nobody can thrive in that. Abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, neglect, just horrific stuff going on all the time, and just expect that your kids are going to thrive in that, and then get grumpy because they didn't, and blame the kids, right? Yeah, so that's great. So see, forgiveness for me is more like I love my mother very much, and I did always love my mother. My mother was my main abuser, but I loved her dearly, and I still do in my heart. I do not hate her for what she did. I hate what she did. I hate what she did to me. I will always hate what she did to me, physically, but more so emotionally, psychologically. Just the lack of love and the lack of care, and the disdain for my life that I actually survived and made it, I describe a lot of the abuse on my website. If you want to go check it out, Bored in Hell, you can just go check out my website. You can type in Bored in Hell, Lori Smith, or author LoriAnnSmith.weebly.com. It'll come up. But, I'm not going to go into too many details to take the whole show up. But the thing is I loved my mom very much. Do I forgive what she did to me? Never. I'll never be able to forgive the acts of violence and the pain and the hurt and the trauma and the scarring to my heart that she did over the years and years and years and years of just using me as a convenient stress reliever punching bag and something to yell at, something to kick around, and something to take her frustrations out on, and then make it look like I was a bad kid, which is just absolutely horrific. And my dad, I loved my dad very much, not as much as my mother, because my dad was abusing my mother, but I did love my dad as a person. I knew he was suffering. He was very mentally ill, a psychologically ill man, and I knew that he was very insecure, and I knew that he didn't think that anybody loved him. He just felt unwanted. I think he was. I know he was abused as a child. My mom was telling me some stuff, right? And my mom used to tell stories on her own mother because her mother abused her. See, because she would want sympathy. So my mother was very much narcissist, right? She was a total narcissist, and played the game very well. And but in the meantime, I got a lot of information out of her, right? So, yeah. My parents were really screwed up, and they, I can't forgive what they did ever. No, I'll never forgive what they did to myself or to my siblings or to each other. I can't forgive that anyway. How can I forgive that? That's, no. But do I forgive them? In my heart, I guess at a certain level I do, because I want forgiveness. I've hurt people. I've done things that hurt people. I think we've all hurt somebody in our lifetime, even if we didn't mean to. And I would want that person to forgive me. Doesn't mean they can forgive what I did, but that they would have forgiveness in their heart for me, some type of compassion, and, maybe that I don't deserve, but that they would give me anyway. That's kind of what I have for my parents. They don't deserve anything from me. They're both passed away now, but I was already doing this work when my dad was still around. And so it's not that I started doing this after just because they passed away. It's just that, I just started doing this after my dad. I had a series of a year with my dad where he drove me absolutely crazy, and I decided to go public with this work because I was like, there's no way you're getting away with this. I thought he was going to murder me. I thought he was going to kill me. I was, he tried to kill me and my sister several times. And I don't know about my brothers, but I do know for my sister that's the case. But anyway, and, the issue is I thought, no, they're not getting away with this, so I went public with it. It wasn't to diss my parents. It wasn't to necessarily to point fingers. I wanted the world to see what happens to a family that does not get help, and why certain things occur. Like 2 of my brothers killed themselves. I mean, that's horrific. One of my sisters was suicidal as well, and I don't know about the other sister, but I know that my oldest sister was, and I was suicidal ideation all my life. From a young girl all the way up till, like I said, the age of 42. And do I still think about it? I do. But I'm not, I'm not going to. I'm set on staying here. I'm set on my, my promise that I made to to God Almighty that I would stay, stick it out, and that's what I'm doing. So it's a horrible thing what people do to their children. And so, no, I will never forgive their actions. I'll never be able to sit there ever. I can imagine if I'm 80 years old, another 30 years rolls by, I'm not going to be able to sit there on the couch someday and say, "Oh, I forgive you completely." Like, no, it's not going to happen. And for me, that's just the way it is. And everybody's different. Like I said, there's many people will say, "Well, you have to if you're ever going to move on." I just can't do that. I cannot. And like they said, because this article goes back and says, well, people believe that if they do forgive their abuser, that means that their behavior, quote unquote, was acceptable or it didn't really hurt them or whatever. They're condoning the abuser's actions, and actually that's not true. It's very true. Forgiveness allows the hurt to be in the past. For me, what it is just the fact is understanding allows the hurt to be in the past a little bit. Like the hurt's not necessarily all in the past anyway. I don't know if I can ever get to that point because the damage is so deep. It's so intertwined. It's not like someone just abused me for a year or 6 months and that's it, and then the rest of my youth and childhood was great. Like I grew up in an abusive home, so I was born into abuse. I think my mother tried to kill me in the womb. This is how far back we're going, because I was born very, very sick, and she didn't want me. I was a rape child. Right, so she told me I was a rape child. When I was old enough to actually know what was going on, she made sure I knew that. Right. Thanks, Mom. That's great. But anyway, this is the issue. This is the stuff. It's so in there and part of my being and my fiber. How do you let something like that go? It's part of my makeup. What I'm trying to do, I guess, what I'm working on mainly day to day, is working on how do I live with this so that I can grow as a person. I can learn to love. I can learn to trust. I can learn to help people. I can learn to help myself. I can do good things. I can have a good, decent life. I can take care of myself. I can take care of things I need to get done, and just live as decently a normal life as possible. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I guess for me, instead of looking at this section here where they said forgiveness allows the hurt to be in the past, for me, I guess it's more like understanding of the issues and what happened to me and why I feel the way that I do, and what the trauma and the abuse caused in me to cause me to be, to feel the way that I do about myself and about life in general. Understanding is actually what's helping me to learn how to put the hurt in the past, and it's not so much forgiveness for me. For others, it might be, and like I said, everybody's different. We're all in different places. We're in different stages in our journey. And so, there's a next section of this article we'll pick up on next week, on next Monday night. So we'll take a look at the rest of it. So yeah, because it's a pretty lengthy, and I don't know if we can finish it. It's another whole section there, but it's just a huge issue, that this forgiveness thing. I've had I actually did post on Facebook one time that I did forgive my parents for what they did, but I would not forgive their actions. I just forgave them because I knew where they were coming from and I knew how screwed up they were. And actually, I felt kind of sorry for them because they were really screwed up. And as an adult, I could see that. And when I was young, I was just living in this mess with them, and I knew they were really screwed up just because of the abuse and the domestic violence, and it was absolutely a nightmare. And what they did to their sons, what they did to all of us, they abused us all. Horrific. 7 children. And they had a great time doing it, I'm sure. They enjoyed themselves very much. They were both really screwed up people. But, I love them, and in order for me to learn how to love life and to want to be here, which is hard for me because I really, most of the time, don't love life and don't want to be here. These tidbits, these little tidbits like friends, things that nice people will do for you. I've had so many people in my past, who have done some really nice things for me that actually make it all worthwhile. and make me want to learn to be a better person myself, to try to emulate other people. So my goal is to try to undo the damage that they did that caused me to behave the way that I did, and it caused me to then become this totally dysfunctional adult. Even though I was drug-free, alcohol-free, I still was not coping well with anything. Just run from every situation, push people away. I still do that. I still have a problem with pushing people away, pushing things away, pushing whatever, push away, because I can't handle rejection, so then I have to push away first. There's just so many issues that I'm still working on. But that's my whole issue, is that, I'm trying to emulate these people in my life that have done so many wonderful things just by being good to me, by being kind to me in any situation, whether it's a boss or, a coworker or a friend or somebody on Facebook who I just love chatting with, or somebody that I do personally know from my past. These are the things that bring me peace. These are the things that show me what real love and care is. What it is that they would want the best for me, so I should want the best for me, right? These people would want me to have a successful, outcome of all of this horror that I've been through, and so I want a successful outcome of all this stuff, right? And it's, I try to, I guess maybe that's most of my work, is to try to learn, to grow, and to try to move through this stuff. I don't think I'll ever forget it. I'll never be able to forget what my parents did to my brothers, or what they did to us, or what they did to each other. But I can learn how to lessen the pain of that, and lessen the obtrusiveness of that, I guess, by learning how to cope. And so that's my goal. But as far as forgiveness goes, that's up to every individual. So we'll pick up that section of it next Monday night. And we only have a few minutes left, like 4 minutes left, unfortunately. I could only do a half hour because that's all. I can't afford to pay the show right now. Maybe in the future, but not right now. We can do, we could do a self-esteem. How about this? This is a Havoka Getting Started affirmation. It's their self-esteem affirmations from their webpage there, and you can go check it out on Havoka. It's under their Information for Survivors tab. And this is one, I like to talk about these because these really show kind of like where we're at in our healing journey, or what our personality is. It lets you take a look at yourself. This one says, I'm an extremely well-liked and pleasing person. I could go around saying that all day. I'm an extremely well-liked and pleasing person. And, for me, that's great. I think for me, that doesn't work so well because I'm not a people pleaser. I never have been. And I don't care if people like me or not. Because I was abused as a child. I was, beaten up, walking around with bruises on my face and welts on my legs, and kids seeing my parents beating me outside and stuff. And I was quite embarrassed most of the time, being beaten in public and in parking lots at Kmart and different places like that, and just being cursed and cussed out. And so most of the kids didn't like me already and made fun of me. So I grew with pretty thick skin on that, and I really don't care if people like me or not. But do I like myself? I'm learning to, and I want to do nice things for people, not just to please them, but just because I think it's good to pass that on. People do nice things for me. I like to do something nice for somebody else. Keep that thing going, of being kind, of being compassionate, of being empathetic, of caring, right? Which is what I was not taught as a child. I was not taught any of that stuff as a child, so I'm having to learn this stuff. So am I an extremely well-liked and pleasing person? I don't think so, but I'm trying to learn how to be a better person. And that's my goal, is how to be a better person on this planet, and to try to do what I can to help other people, and not just about myself, And, that's, to me, that would be the ultimate goal. Not just to be a people pleaser, but just to be a better person on the earth and try to help people out. So we have about 1 minute left. We'll pick up next Monday night, and if you're looking for info on coping skills and whatnot and coping mechanisms, here's a really cool website. This is Irving Studios. Just type into your browser IRVING, irvingstudios.com, or Child Abuse Survivor Monument. Irving Studios. That would get you there. And there's underneath the survivors, child abuse survivor information there's all kinds of info on coping mechanisms. There's a meditation gallery there you can check out. There's all kinds of stuff there. If you're having trouble just, grounding or whatever it is, you make sure you get some help. And like if you're not coping well and you're having trouble tonight, you call a crisis line. You call somebody, but you make sure that you stick it out and get some help and do not struggle on your own. If you can't cope, like I wanted to be one of the people sitting on the crisis lines eventually. You never know, I might do that. I couldn't do it with my husband when he was here because he was terminally ill. And make sure that you get some help, right? Talk to you next Monday. Bye-bye.
Hi there. Welcome to our show home. Come on in, take a look around.
Whoa, look at this floor plan.
Yeah, it's an open concept.
And this granite countertop. Magnificent.
Yeah, at Calbridge Homes,
Is this interior finishing for real?
Well, yeah, it's actually inspired by...
Shh. Just...
Okay, then.
Our salespeople make every effort, but a Calbridge home speaks for itself. Visit one of our 15 show homes in Calgary or Cochrane, or visit calbridgehomes.com.